And welcome back again in this other session of learning how to create mobile application using Flutter. We're going to have this class for less than 90 minutes, and if we go and reach 90 minutes while we still have energy, we can always push. So as we have said, that today we're going to look at that programming language, and because doing Flutter applications, you need that programming language. So if you go to Flutter without that programming language, then you'll be just mediocre. So you better understand that programming language first, and then we can proceed to Flutter programming language. And as I've planned, this class will be enough to explore enough of that programming language. So with that much said, let's get started with today's business. So in the very first place, you need first create that programming language environment. And I've already made that video. It's a separate video. I'll share it with you immediately after this class that can teach you how to create that programming language. Immediately after this class, that programming language environment. Immediately after this class, I'll share with you that video. But with that said, still I will show you how you can set up that programming language environment. The first thing that you do to set up that programming language environment, you first go to your browser. So let me open here my browser. That's my browser. I hope you can see it. And then you go to google.com, of course. And there you simply say download that SDK. So you come here and download that SDK. So they'll ask you which operating system you're using. For example, me, I'm using Mac, so I'll go for Mac. If you're using Windows, go for Windows. But you'll always find it here where it has already been described for you. Just click here to download that programming, that SDK. Then after, you have to add it in your environment. I've already explained all these things. I'm going to share with you just a 15-minute video that will help you to set your that programming language environment. That video I'll share it with you, but you can always find it on my YouTube channel. Come to YouTube and search Learn It with Mohindo, and then that video will be here under my YouTube channel here. How to set up that programming language environment is here. It's just a 16 minutes video. I will share it with you immediately after here, so you can set up your environments. So to save time, I'll not go through that step by step, but since we already have the video in place, we can either edit this video and add that part here, other than just going again and set it up from scratch. So once you download that SDK, you add it into your environment. Okay, the next thing will be a text editor or the IDE that you'll use to program your programs. So the IDE will always use the most popular one. That's the one that you always use, but you can use any one. But the one which is popular is VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So in the previous class, we learned how to download Android Studio, but here you'll need Visual Studio Code. For many projects that you may need to create, you'll need Visual Studio Code. Even web and Android programs themselves, you need VS Code. So you just come download VS Code, Visual Studio Code there, and then click on this first search results. And then you choose which. If you're using Windows, go for Windows. If you're using Ubuntu, go for one of these. If you're using Mac, you go for this one. So once you download it, you install it by just simply clicking next, and you'll be able to have Visual Studio Code in your computer. But for me, I already have it. But in the video that I'll share with you, that 15 minutes video, it will be able to help you to explain how to download this Visual Studio Code and install it on both Windows and Mac. So you'll have all things, setting up the environment, all of it in less than 15 minutes. So to save time, I'll not show this to go step by step installing, but I'll share a video that will help you to do that. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code, and so I'll get started. So I'll come here and then come and open VS Code. So I just simply write code. There we are. There we go. I'm not clicking on it. It is here, right? So it opened. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder here. So you have to organize your works, of course. So I'm going to create a folder, a special folder for this. So I'm going to come here on home and then say new folder. I'm going to call it that. So it is here. I'm going to call it learn that. Select learn _ that. So the next thing is to open this folder in our IDE. So I can simply drag and drop it there, or if you don't have ability to drag and drop it, another way you can open this folder here by simply coming to file, then open folder. It is here, right? Open folder, and then you go ahead and click on desktop and click on learn that. You see, this is the folder just created. So I'll go ahead and open this folder. So there we go, and we have our folder there opened. So it is empty, there is nothing there. So after doing that, we are going to this thing of Zoom is disturbing. Okay, so after doing that, then it means that we have already opened our that program, I mean our VS Code, and our folder is there. So the next thing, you may need to add extensions that can help you with suggestions and code auto completions. So to do that, just simply come here to this extension and search for that. Just write that, and then you'll be able to see that here, that programming language. This is very good extension. You install it, and also that's enough. There's also another one, Flutter, that syntax. These two, just only this one can be enough. What is their use? They help you to autocomplete. You see this one, they'll help us to autocomplete code. So when you are creating projects, speed is really important, doing things at a fast rate. So when you have something that will help you to autocomplete most frequently pieces of code, then you better use it. So come and install this extension to help us to autocomplete code. So I'll come here, back to my back to my file section here, and then there I'm going to create our very first file, and I'll simply come here and right click new file, and then I'm going to call it one_intro, or you can call it test or intro.dat. So extensions here are very important. If you last programmed very long ago and you want to resume right now, you have to remember, of course, important things. Among the things that you have to remember is extensions. If you don't put a right extension, then it means that your program will not work, because these extensions help computer to tell that this is a certain type of file, this is another certain type of file. HTML.html, PHP.php, a music file.mp3, a song file is .mp4. So these extensions, if you forget them, then things will misbehave, things will not work properly. So every file of that will have an extension of .dart. So always remember to put extensions. So am I putting one? I'm putting one because I want to keep my code well organized. That's why I put 1. So to the next example, I'll put 2. Another example, 3, like that. Such that if I come back again, I'll be able to trace where I started from, and another file. Or if my friends come and want to learn through my pieces of code, I mean my codes or my files, you'll be able to know where I started from and where I proceed. So you can ask the question, like, why am I explaining so much? I'm explaining so much because I wanted to understand these concepts properly. Someone should unmute. Should mute, eh? Someone should mute, please. Someone should mute. Good. So I'm explaining because I want us to understand these concepts very clearly. And when you implement them, we always remember them. Otherwise, for another kind of teacher could just even explain why we need that extension. I couldn't explain why we need one underscore. I believe in cooking little food, but sweet. So I'll create that first file and press enter. So I'll zoom out, and there we go. So this is our first file of that. So how do you start program of that? So a program of that will always call a main function. If you learned C programming some time ago, C programming starts from main, likewise to that. So when you write a very huge program, there must be a place where the operating system will start from to execute that program. So in that, to tell that my program starts from here, we create a what we call a main function. So that function, the operating system always calls that function to do what? To start operating your program, to start executing your program. So we're going to create a main function by simply writing void. I believe we already know what is meant by void. It is nothing, it is returning nothing. And then you write the name of the function, main, open brackets, and then curly brackets and close them. So it means that our program will start from here. In the video that I will share with you, I will show you up to here. So you don't need to worry. Once you have that video, you sit down and watch it and practice. Up to this point, you'll be able to do what? To reach here step by step. So don't need to worry about that. So it means that our programming language, our program will start from here. So let's go ahead and do what? And display something in the console. We'll display something in the console by, of course, putting print. So if we want to display something in console, using that we use print. So I can say hello world. Okay, hello world, and then go ahead and put a semicolon. The syntax of that is much more like that of C programming and Java. So if you know Java, C programming, getting started with that will not be a problem with you. So you see, I just put a function and then I put hello and then I print that. I print hello world. I go ahead and save. Always remember to save. Then after that, we have to execute this file and we see if we are good to go. So to execute a file, you will have to do what? To open a command prompt. You can open a command prompt from scratch by just going to start and open the command prompt or the terminal. Or the other way, this VS Code, the reason why we say VS Code is good is because it has a lot of features. Among the features that it gives you, it is what? It is the command prompt. It is the command prompt. So let's go ahead and open the terminal. So open the terminal, there's a shortcut. Press Ctrl and the tilde button. That tilde button is the button under the escape on your keyboard. Just press Ctrl and hold it and then press the tilde button. The command prompt will open the terminal. Or the other way, without a shortcut, just simply come here on top. On top here, you'll find the word terminal. Click on terminal and then say new terminal. Then you'll be able to get the what? The terminal here. Okay, so after you have the terminal, then you have to execute this file, and to see if you can have that hello world here. Now to execute the file, this file of hello world, to execute it, we just simply write that. So in the next in the video that you will watch, that 15 minutes video, it will make you reach up to this point, the point whereby if you write that in your command prompt, it will be able to give you this information. Otherwise, if you write it right now before you install that, then you will not be able to get this information. So you should be able to reach up to that point. If you can't, then try to search. Try your best to see that you can do that. At least you can write that and bring that. But if you still fail, then feel free to ask us. We'll be able to help you, because for us, we already know the path. So I'll go ahead and write that and then write the name of the file. So the name of the file is what? Is one underscore. Another thing, make sure that you're in the same folder, right? That this terminal is pointing the same folder. How do you tell that it is pointing the same folder? You just simply write pwd. I don't know the abbreviation what it means, but write pwd and then it will tell you the path. Okay, it will tell you the path. So right now I'm in users, Mac, desktop, learn that. You can see that. So I'm in the same folder, right? If you open the terminal by default, it will be in that same folder. Otherwise, if you're not in the same folder, then you have to navigate using CD. You know how to use CD, I assume. If I want to go outside this folder, write CD and then like this. You'll see if I write again pwd I'm outside this folder. I'm now on desktop. If I want to see all things in this desktop folder, I can simply write ls. It will give me the list of all the files in my folder of desktop. Now I want to enter in this file folder that we just created, which is learn.dat. Okay, so to clear the screen on Mac, press Ctrl and K. It will clear. To clear the screen on Windows, just write CLS. It will clear the screen. So let's go ahead and navigate to this folder of learn.dat. So to navigate to the folder, just write CD and then the name of the folder. Don't finish the whole name. If you write like 3 letters, you just press the tab key. The terminal will help you to accomplish that name. So we're in the folder of that. So if I write ls, you can see we're having one file here, which is this one. If I write pwd, I'll see the part that I'm here. So I'll clear everything. Now let's go ahead and run this file. So to run that file, we just simply write dat and then the name of the file, which is one_intro.dat. Let's go ahead and run it. Beautiful. You can see we're having hello world. So that means that you're good to go. You're good to get started with practicing what? Practicing that. So with that much said, let's now go to the notes that I've prepared for you. And we'll not read notes, but we'll be just they'll help us to follow step by step. But if you want to read, then you'll have to read by yourself. I'll share with you the notes so you can follow along. You can read if you want to read much more deeper. But here we're going to concentrate much on what? On practicals. Just taking a minute. Good. So we are going to look at different topics. Among the topics is the dat variables. Recent. Okay. Let me open this somewhere here. I hope you can see my screen, members. Can I confirm from any one of you? Can you see my screen clearly?
Yes, we do see the screen.
That is great. So we have these are the topics that we're going to look at. We're going to look at if you want to learn step by step, I'll share with you this file. But here we're going to concentrate much more on what? On practicals and explanations. But I'll share with the file, and you can always come back to the file and you learn more about the file. So we have variables, we have classes. So variables, we'll see what is meant by variable. We'll look at 2 classes, we'll look at functions, we'll look at expression and constants, we'll look at comments. Comments is automatic, of course. And then when we reach library, we'll go back now to what? To Flutter, and then generics, and then these remaining things we will practice in Flutter. What we're going to practice here, most things, is the variables and operators, and then classes and functions. Once we are good to go with this one, then we are good to go even with what? With Flutter programming. So we've already looked at the syntax, and this is how the syntax, and we've already done this through practicals. So there is no need to do what? To explain it again. So here are different data types that that programming language supports. It supports numbers, it supports strings, it supports booleans, it supports lists, supports maps, and double and float. Double and float, always count them in what? In numbers, of course. When you talk about numbers, we mean int, we mean float, we mean double, of course. So all these are here under numbers. Okay, so these are the data types that are what? That programming language supports. Then classes and the rest, those are custom data types that you'll be creating the class. So but the basic data type that supports, they are these ones. So you can proceed. So variable, what is meant by a variable? A variable is something that can store data, and we can use that data later. If you want to store your data somewhere so that you can reuse it again, you store it in something called variable. So a variable is something that will create memory and give it a name. It create a memory on a disk and give it a name. So later we can use that memory by referencing using the name that we allocated for that memory. So let's go ahead and create a variable. So I'm going to come here and create another file. So when you practice, good practice, like every time you create a variable, you create for it a special what? A special file. So that you be organized there. You'll be organized also. Maybe if another person wants to learn from your code, you just give them those codes. They can know, hey, here we're talking about this particular topic. Being organized in programming is really important. Otherwise, if you don't organize your stuff, then they'll confuse you yourself. You write your code, after 2 days you come and ask, hey, who did this code? Why? You did not organize it. So let's go ahead and create another special file for variables. Right click there, new file. I'm going to call it 2. Why am I numbering them? You already know why. Underscore variables. Dot. Extension is very important. We're going to create here what? The structure of that programming language, which is what? Void main function, open bracket and close. So let's go ahead and do this and create a variable. As we say, that variable is a space that you create so that you can use that data that you stored in that space later. So let's go ahead and create our first variable. To create first variable, to define variable in that, just write the word var and then give this variable a name. So we can give it a name. So, but name can confuse you. Name, don't worry, we'll explain it. Okay. So the space that you're going to create, you have called it name. So if you want to access it again later, you can just simply come to this name and we'll be able to access the data that is stored here. So I'm going to say name and I'm going to initialize it in the same place by simply saying equal sign Muhindo Mubarak, and then put semicolon at the end. So we have created space here and then we have stored there something. So let us go and display this space. So we just simply say print and say a name. So by doing like that, it means that this name will be substituted here and then we'll be able to get the what this as our output. So let's go ahead and run that in our terminal. So this is the terminal already opened. I can clear it and then I write .to underscore and then the tab key. It will help you to autocomplete the word. So you're running that file of that variables. When I run it, you can see Muhindo Mubarak as displayed there. So if I want to, that's how we can create a variable and access it in that. So if you want to display this name inside another string, you can simply do like this, open the double quotes there and then say my name is, and then put the $sign and then put the curly brackets. So once you do like that, you are telling that whatever I'm going to put inside these curly brackets is going to be a variable. So I'll put there my name is name. So whatever is here is going to be replaced here, and save and come here and run the file again. You can see my name is the name of the variable. So we created storage here and we're able to access it. Let's go ahead and create our second variable by simply putting var and then maybe you can say age equals maybe 91 and then come and use it, make use of it by just simply putting here a comma and then I am, then put the $sign, put the curly bracket, age, that's the name of variable, years old, and then put full stop. Save, clear the screen, run, and see my name is Muhindo Mubarak and I am 92 years old. So that's how we create variables and that's how we access variables. I might be very fast, but don't worry, I will share the video. We will share the video. So once you share the video, you can pause, you can rewind, and you can change even the speed to slow to fast. So don't worry about that speed, but try to be so keen and see that at least you understand the concepts. Understanding how it works, like not being sure whether it will work, that you can look at it later. But right now, understand the concept. Like if I say variable, do you understand what is meant by variable? Later, implementing, you can always search on Google, watch from other tutors, and you'll always understand. But the main thing is to understand the concept, and then you can use it in any other idea. So I hope we understand why you need variables and how we create them. So we'll proceed to the next.
Hello, excuse me.
Yes.
So here, when we are defining variables, we don't define the data type.
No, the data type will come to it, but here in that you don't need to define the data type. That's a very good question, but we are coming to that. Just a minute, just a second. Someone is calling. A second, eh? Hello?
11 and the 3 have dropped off. What is the link?
Yes. Indeed. Sinsibiye bulungi naye ndi mu kibiina nsomesa. Nja kubirako like after 1 hour. Yeah. Sorry for that. Sorry for that, someone just called me. So we proceed. Those who left, of course, the video will always be there for them. So we proceed to another part. So someone asked if we don't need to define the data type. In Flat, I mean in Dart, really defining data type it comes later, but we'll talk about that when we reach data types. But here we're just trying to show you that with that you can define a dynamic variable that can store any kind of data. So we proceed to data types. So to create a data type, we're going to create another file for data type, new 3 underscore data types. Is it a 1 word? Data type dot, and then there we go. I'm going to create void main, and then there we go. So after doing that, let's go ahead and create a data type, data types. So we discussed different data types that Flutter supports. Supports numbers, and these are the types of numbers. It supports strings, booleans, lists, and maps. In C programming and Java, in C programming there is no maps. So let's go ahead and create a data type of integer. So variable, it will store any kind of data. But if you want to be strict, for example, if you say that the system that I'm going to create, the PIN or the password will be only numbers. So you have to be careful here. Don't create something lazily like this, like it can allow a string to be stored there, it can allow an integer to be stored there. But if you're creating a serious system, then and you're taking too much security measures, if you're saying that your rule is all passwords should be numbers, so it means that you should not even allow a password to be any kind of generic thing that can change to any type. So to do that, then you'll come to, you need this knowledge of what? Of data types. We have numbers, which can be an integer, float, to a double. We have strings, we have booleans, and what? So let's go ahead and create a data type of strings, of integer. So to initialize an integer in that, just simply write int like that, okay? So int, and then say maybe a price. So it means that here you cannot store a string inside that integer, and that's why you see an error here, a warning. Why? It has been limited only to strings, to integers. But in variables, you can do that. You cannot do this in what? In Java. No, it's not allowed in Java. But with that and JavaScript, you have ability to create a generic what? Data type. So if you say price, it means that this one will be always an integer. So you can say 900. And to access it, just simply, like we would access the other thing, which is just price. And then you can be able to run this file, which is .3 underscore, you can see 900. That's how you access it, just like the other one. So to create other data types, we have string. To initialize string, just write string like this with capital letter, capital S beginning. You'll be able to do what? To create a string. String there. We have double, double in Francais. That's how you initialize double, and float. And that's how you initialize float, and other data types. So boolean is just simply bool, like this, bool. So I'll share with you these pieces of code so you can come and look at them later. So maps will come when you go deeper into it. Will explain what is meant by map. to initialize a map is something that will be stored in form of a key and a value. So to create a map, just write map with capital M, map. So you can now just say that this map will store a string and a string. So it means that you're going to store a string and a string. So, and give this variable, of course, a name, my map. So if you're familiar with JSON, we deal with JSON in this map variable. Okay, so JSON will be property value, and that's how you define a map. So your map can be of integer and integer. Still, your map can be of string. And then another special thing here, if your map is going to be, let's say like it's going to be having a string here, which is the name of a property, but you're not sure of what is going to be the value. You're not sure whether it will be an integer, you're not sure whether it will be another list or another map, you're not sure whether the value will be a double. When you're not sure, what do? You cannot create here var. No, you cannot do that, but you write what you call dynamic. Let me comment it here so you can come. So if you're not sure of the second variable what it will be, just put your dynamic. So with the dot, it means that the keys, it will make sure they are strings, and then the second one, it can be any kind of data. It can be a list, it can be an array, it can be another map. So that's how we do that. So we'll do that. We'll understand that very well when we reach to APIs which deal with JSONs in Flutter. When we do the real world application using Flutter, that's when you understand why we need this dynamic. But I hope right now you can get the concept, and I hope you have been answered the data types part of that. So it gives you both abilities. You can strict, or you can do things in a lazy way. Lazy way, variable. Strict way, data types. You answered? Who asked the question?
Yes, I've got the answer.
That is great. So we proceed. Variables, we are done. Yeah, but you can always come to the document and read. So you go to operators. So I'll come here and create for underscore operators dot data. So let's create our main function, a void main dependent. So operators, of course, they will help us to perform arithmetic operations and logical operations or decision operations. So in that, we have different types of operators, and here they are. Have arithmetic operators, the plus, the minus, those ones. We have equality operations, these ones that can help us to check if something is less than, greater than, the one that we use for comparison. We have typeset operators and bitwise operators, the one that you can use to compare bit by bit of a certain value. We have assignment operators. Assignment operators, things like equal sign, we call them assignment operators. And then we have logic operators to check if something is not equal to or equal to, something like that. Those are logic operators. So you will come in this document. I've written about most of them. You can come and learn, and you can as well search and learn more. So let me demonstrate how we can do some operations. So I'm going to create here just a simple thing. I'm going to create just an integer a, and initialize it to 0, and integer b, initialize to 0, and integer c, initialize to 0. So let's go ahead and say c. So equal sign is assignment operator, a is a variable, plus a b. Okay, so it's going to be c. This, whatever is going to be added here, it's going to be stored here. So to these operators, they are just like normal values. Plus is for add, minus is for subtraction, of course. A star is for multiplication, called it asterisk sometimes. A forward slash is for division. This one is for divide, but returns an integer as result. This tilde with a forward slash, it will return only integer. It will not return a value with dots. I mean with what with trailing 0.000, those remainders, it will not return that. This one will only return integer. Percentage will get for us a what? A reminder. Plus plus will increase something by 1, and minus minus will reduce something by what? By 1. So let's go ahead and see how this works. So we just need to say print, and then say put $C. So if it is just a single value, you're not forced to put curly bracket. If the name of the variable is not you're not accessing it maybe from a class or an object of a class, just you can simply put $, and the name of the variable. You still will be good. So you can say C equals $A plus what? Plus B. So those values will be substituted with their what? With their values on top here. Let's go ahead and run. So I'll open my terminal. There you go. I've opened it using a shortcut. I clear my screen, Ctrl K on Mac, CLS on Windows. So let's go ahead and run this file. Just write dot, and then name of the file, which is 4_ and then operators.dat. Press enter. You'll be able to see 0 plus 0 equals 0. So let us go ahead and put there some value 10 plus 10 5 and then 0 there. So save, come and run it. So 14 equals to 10 plus 6 plus 6. So I can even put this one this side. So I just try to elaborate there that I believe at this level you can do the same thing for minus, you can do the same thing for multiplication. So I'll call that enough for operators, but you can always come ahead and do it and do the operations later and practice more. We're going to proceed to those operators, then we're going to proceed to decision making. Okay, when we reach decision making, it's when we'll come to these logic operators, okay, the one that we use for comparing, but we'll come to them immediately after functions. Okay, then we come to decision making. So far, can I get feedback if you're still on the same page, just from any one of you or anyone who is lost? We are together, right?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, that's great. So we proceed to loops. Then after loops, we'll come back to functions, and after function, then we'll go to decision making, and then decision making. So I'll look at these logic operators. So don't worry, we'll come back here. So we proceed to loops. So what are loops? So loops, they help us to iterate, to perform iterations. If you don't have the knowledge of loops and you want to do things, actually you'll find very serious hard time. I assume that you want to display a certain word or a certain thing 50 times. What does it mean? If you don't have the knowledge of loops, then it means that you'll have to write that line 50 times. Now what if it is 1,000 times? So it means that you'll have to write that line 1,000 times without logic, which is really, really tiresome. So we always need the knowledge of loops because it helps us to perform a certain piece of code multiple times until a certain condition is reached. So a loop can be dynamic. So it means that you can say, hey, we want you to run this code 20 times. Assume that you're making you see like a safe border application. I believe most of us here we have used safe border application. When you try to order for a border in the morning time, you see that it takes time for them to get for you what? A rider. So what happens? There is a loop behind. They can say, hey, let us check for this person 3 times. So they'll check for the first time, they find on the server there is no rider. So the loop will wait, again loop for the second time, maybe up to like 5 times according to the algorithm. After 5 iteration, it still don't get you a rider, then they go ahead and do it and tell you. So those are how we can implement loops in real world. That's just one simple example. So it loops there behind as it is checking. It's checked one time, they don't get for you a rider. Check for the second time. When they check maybe like 6 times and they are not getting you a rider, then they tell you, hey, we didn't get you a rider. But what happens there? there are loops behind there. So a loop will help us to perform iteration and execute a piece of code multiple times. That's what is meant. So in that programming language, we have these three types of loops. We have a for loop, while loop, and do while loop. And these are categorized into two, whereby a for loop, it will have an end. It will have an end until a certain condition is what is reached. Then we have while loop. This one will only, it is an infinite loop. It will indefinite. It can run forever, but you can always break it by yourself. If you don't break it by yourself, then to run forever. And likewise to do while loop. So let us go ahead and practice all of these in different examples. So I'm going to create a new file, which is going to be file number 5 underscore loops dot dat. Write our main function. Why don't I just come and copy this rather than repeating myself? There we go. So we're going to now demonstrate loops. So let us begin with the for loop in that programming language. So to begin with for loop, I want to zoom so I can see clearly. There we go. So let us go ahead and create our first loop, for loop. So a for loop, this is how it looks like. Just write for, open bracket, and then the curly bracket. So here you'll put the code that you need to be repeated. That's where we put the code. Then here you're going to put there the conditions, and this is how we put the conditions. So the condition will be divided into three. The first one is going to be initializing. The second one is going to be the condition, and then the third one is going to be an operation that will be repeated every time. So here we're going to initialize int and say x equals 0. So initializing then say x is equal to 0. And then after, we can now come and give a condition now, the second part here. We give the condition that say x is less than maybe 20. And then here we write an operation that is going to be repeated multiple times. And what do we want to repeat every time of a loop is x plus plus. So this x should increase. Otherwise, if you're not careful here and do a mistake and then put minus minus, what will happen? This will go on the opposite side. It will go to -1, -2, -3, -4. So every time this condition will be checked, it will never be reached. Why? Because this has taken a wrong direction. It will go to negatives, and this one is waiting for reaching what? In positive 20. So what does it mean? It means that this loop will loop forever. So you always have to put there plus plus. If you always be careful when you are putting this kind of loop, creating this kind of loop. So let's go ahead and display this x. So I can put print and then say x. So just simply do that. Okay. So you put like that, save. Let's run this file, that, and then give the name of the file, which is 5, and then the tab key, and then run. So you can see you're having 0 up to 20. But if you did have the knowledge of loops and you want to do this, what does it mean? You could write each line for this one. But you see here, I can even put 1000. Save. I just run. Then the computer will do the whole business of counting from 0 up to 1000. So let's go ahead and do another way, or you can also do it in another way. They can play it. For example, you can say, now let us begin from 1000 by just simply saying 1000 here, and then when you say 1000, it means we're going to begin from top. So you have to put the condition and say x should be greater than what? Maybe than 0 or than 1. Okay, than 0, and then since it begins from top, then it means that you have to come backwards. Otherwise, if you go x plus plus, what does it mean? It will go to 1001, 1002, 1000, and will never go backwards to 0. So it means that the loop will loop in the opposite direction, as you're also waiting it here in the opposite direction, and it will loop forever. So I have to come minus minus because it's beginning from top. So let's go ahead and run that. I'll delete everything here. Run. Beautiful. Can you see? Started from 1000 up there, and it came and it came and it came. When it reaches the condition that x is what is greater than 0, so when it reaches to -1, I mean it reaches to 0 itself, it checked is 0 greater than 0. Of Of course no. 0 is equal to 0 but not greater than 0. Then it stops from there. So a loop will repeat a piece of code until a certain condition is reached. We proceed to while loops. Let me rename this because I'll share with you these files so you can come and check on them. Loop for okay, let us keep it loops for. Why do you begin with the word loops? Is because it is under the topic of loops. So in create new file here, new file, and I'm going to call this one number 6, and I'm going to call this one loops while. There we go. Come and copy this basic structure and paste it here. So let's go ahead and create a while loop. So to create while loop, it's simple. Just write while, and then you put here condition, and then you put here the piece of code that you want to be repeated. So you write while and you put a condition, and then you put a piece of code that will be repeated. So let us create now. How can we do the same thing in for loop? Like how can we do it in while loop? How can we do it? For example, want to loop from 0 to 10 using while loop, and we also come and after looking at for loop, while loop, and do while loop, we'll now discuss in which different scenarios do we need these loops. Those guys who created for loop and while loop, did it make sense? Did we really need while loop? Did we really need do while loop? We'll come to that after demonstrating all of them. So let's go ahead and create here an integer x or integer y equals to 0. Okay, so while loop, what is it? What is happening? I cannot save. Let me save again. Okay, so they're just showing me that I'm saving with an error. Okay, so that's an extension that is helping us to debug and see if we don't have an error. So now we begin by y equals 0, and then after doing that, we put here a condition. So between here we put a condition. Just write only a condition. So once that condition is reached, the loop will stop. Otherwise, if that condition is not reached, the loop will loop forever. So I can say while y is greater than what? Greater than okay, while y is less than what? Less than 10. Y should increase y plus plus. So that is another way you can achieve the previous loop using the while loop. So let me go ahead and print y. So let's explain this logic. What is going to happen here? We make y equal to 0. So here it is going to loop until y put here greater than. It's going to loop until y is greater than what? Is greater than 10. So when y reaches 11, the loop will do what? Will stop. So it will print y, and here we are increasing y by ourselves. Otherwise, if you forget to increase y, what does it mean? It means that y will not change, and then it's going to loop forever. That's why I say this is indefinite, but you're the one who have to do the logic of making sure that this loop does what? This loop does stop. Otherwise, if you don't do that logic, then the loop will loop forever. So I'll save, come to our terminal, clear that.
That is right.
Sorry?
Is that condition right? Y is greater than 10, then again we add on. Won't that be indefinite?
So yeah, it has to be less than. Otherwise, here to not show anything. Yeah, it will stop when y is greater than 10. Very good observation. So you're going to do that, and then say 6, and then happy. So it will go up to there. Otherwise, if you keep it there, so it will stop. It will not even execute for the first time. Why? Because y is not greater than 10. Okay, so when it begins, y is less than 10. So this will be false, and then it will not do anything here. So it has to be, as long as y is still less than 10, then it should keep on looping. Yeah, that's a very nice observation. So if you run, now you can see we can achieve the same thing using what? Using the while loop. So we can proceed to do while loop, and then after we discuss why we need these different kinds of loops. I'll come here to number 7. Let me copy this first. Copy. And then I'm going to create another file. I'll call it 7, and then I can call it do while. Do underscore while. So I will just simply say void main bracket and okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to first initialize our counter int, maybe counter equals to 0, and then after we are going to write do. So write the do while, you just simply write do and then open the curly bracket, and then you write while here. I'm going to see what will be the difference. So inside this while is where we put the condition. Okay, so it's going to say do while counter is less than is less than 50. So here inside this curly bracket we have to increase that counter by ourselves, but in for loop all of that could be increased. You could do it only in the same bracket, but here you have to increase it by yourself. Then you can have to say plus plus. So this code between this curly bracket is going to be repeated multiple times until this condition is wrong. So it means that at first here will begin while counter is 0, then to be increased by 1, and then check is 1 less than 10. No, it is not less than 10. Sorry, let's come again. It's going to check is 1 less than 10. Yes, 1 is less than 10. As long as it's less than 10, it will come back and again increase here by 1. It comes to 2 and checks 2 is 2 less than 10. Yes, less than 10. So it will increase until it is 50. When it is 50, is 50 less than 50? Of course no, 50 is not less than 50. So it will stop. Okay, so let us go ahead and display this print counter, save, and then run. Clear the screen, dot, and then 7 do while loop. So that's great. See, it reached up to 50. So that's how we do the do while loop. So here you can put as big piece of code as you want. Now we come to the discussion: why do you need for loop and do while loop, and what's the difference between while loop and do while loop? So as it sounds, the for loop, of course, it will help us to do everything until a certain condition is reached between here. Then while loop, it will for the difference between while loop and do while loop. The difference is while loop will first check. If the condition is wrong, it will not execute this piece of code. Why? Because it first checks. But do while loop, for it will first do and check later. So with do while loop, at least one piece of code will always do will always be checked, as long as it is a do while loop. So it will first do and check. It will first do and check. That is why when you ran this code, you see it was able to reach 50. Yet 50 is not less than 50. 50 is equal to 50. So if it was a while loop, it was supposed to stop. Let us go ahead and do that same thing in while loop. So I'll come here to while loop and put here 50. So the first thing here, it will first check before it runs it first runs the code. So if it checks is 50 less than 50, of course no, 50 is not less than 50, but 50 is equal to 50. So it will stop before it executes the code. So it will not display It will not display 50. So let's run it and see dot, and then you put the name of the file, which is 6_while. You can see. Did I save? I did not save. Clear? Can you see? This one stopped at 49. Yet it is having the same condition as do while loop. It stopped at 49. Why? Because it first checks before it does something. But do while loop, it will first run, then Then check. It will first run and then check. So there are different scenarios where you can need this in real world applications. Some application you need first do something before you even check, because for example if someone tries to log in, you'll first check before you decide. So you may need a what kind of do while loop. So do while loop will always first do then check. While loop will always do what? Will check first and then do. So that's the difference, and those are the reasons why we need what? We need while loops. Loops. While we proceed to decision making, right? We proceed to decision making. I hope that's the next thing. Let me check here. Okay, proceed to decision making. I'll share the notes. They are not in this computer, they're in another computer, but I'll share the notes with decision making. So decision making, we have things called what? We have things called if conditions. So if conditions, they'll help us to decide. Let me do this. They'll help us to decide, to make decisions, because all the program that you're going to write, they will depend. We must be putting their decisions. For example, you write a program that is going to require someone to log in. So it means that you have to put condition and check if this username is existing or not, or if this password is existing or not. So you need what? You need conditions. You need to check. So those ones, I will call them decision making in programming. So in that programming language, we have what we call if condition. So if conditions will help us to make decisions, and under if condition, it is attached to another property called else. So the else will check if the first condition did not work, and then we have also if else, and the if else will check and make a second condition if the previous ones did not work. And a condition works in a way that it will check if something is okay. If a certain condition is true, it will execute a piece of code that will put in the first bracket, and in the else part it will execute the else part, and if else it will execute if the previous conditions were not true, and then execute the if else part. So let's go into practicals and look at decision making in that programming language. So what I'm going to do here, remaining 30 minutes. Okay, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create another file again, new file. I'm going to call it 8 underscore if condition, if statement, if condition, dot that. Okay, so let us create a first int, void main, open bracket and close. So we can simply put here now int x equals to 3 to 9 and y equals to 9. So let's go ahead and put the first condition. Then there will come back now to what we discussed here, the operators. So these are the operators. We'll use this operator to check if something is greater than. We'll use this operator to check something is less than. We will use this operator to check if something is greater than or equal to. We will use this operator to check if something is less than or equal to. And we'll use this operator to check if something is exactly equal to each other. So come back and play with this so that you can understand the operators. But you use this one when you're most of the time when you're doing that, when you're dealing with if conditions. So let's go ahead and do some if condition here. So we just simply say we write if and then put bracket and then you put the curly bracket. So whatever code that you put in between this bracket will be executed if the condition is true. Okay, So that's what will happen if this one condition is true, then it will. So I'm going to say here, if x is less than y, this condition is going to be operated here. So I'm going to say print and say x, let us put x, the value of x is less than y. So this piece of code here, it will be, let us put the value of y instead, sorry. It will be executed only and only if this condition is true. But you see x is 9 and y is 9, so what should we expect in the console? We expect nothing. Why? Because the condition is not true. 9 is not less than 9. So let's go ahead and run that. So I'll come and run it, come and put here. So we'll just simply go ahead and pray and do that, and then call the name of the function, which is 8. Run name of the file, sorry. You can see we don't see anything in the screen. Why? Because this condition was not true. So if you want at least one time or one point this condition to be true, what do? We just put another if. Just go ahead and duplicate this one. So you can say if x is greater than y, so you can say x is greater than y. Save, run the file. Still nothing displays. Why? Because x is not greater than x. So let us do the last if and see if it will do that. We do the equal sign. X is equal. So this one will be executed only when this value is equal to this value. Let's go ahead and run. Beautiful. 9 is equal to 9. So it means that at least one of these conditions will be executed if we vary these ones. So if you put here 1, save, run it, you can see 1 is less than what? Is less than 9. If you change here the condition and make it 11, save, so one of the conditions will be executed. 11 is greater than what? Is greater than 9. Okay, so one of the condition here is being executed. So but this is not the right way, this is not the best way or the effective way of doing things. Why? Because it is checking this one, again the same time checks this one, again the same time check this one. But if we could find another optimal way, like if, for example, let us say like is x less than y, how can we do that? By making this one maybe 2 and save and then run it. You see, yes, x less than y. So it checked here and the condition was true. But that did not stop the program again to come and check if this one is not greater than this, and again to come and check if it's not greater than less, is not equal to this. So it is not optimal. It works, but it's not optimal. So what would be the optimal way? The optimal way is to chain these ones, is to chain them. How do we chain them? We chain them by making sure that if the first one is true, the rest should not run. That is the best way how we can do this. But how do we do that? We are going to come and see how we can do that by chaining this one. If the first one is okay, then the rest should not operate. Assume that assume that there are big decisions, like to do a certain decision can consume our resources on this, either on the server or on the machine that is running it. Can consume time maybe to perform a certain if condition. Maybe can consume time. Maybe it can consume the storage. Assume that you're dealing with bigger things like maybe files, videos and that. So you'll find that you running this if and this one and this one, yet this one was true. It is not optimal. So to do something which is optimal is like we find a way where in case the first one is true, then the remaining ones should not be checked. So that's what we're going to look at. But right now, you may not see the effect because the system is fast and the condition is just very simple. But to do something which are really efficient and effective, then we have to chain some if conditions. So let's go ahead and see how we can chain if conditions. So we chain the if condition using else. So just this if else and then another else if else. So let's go ahead and create another file. I'll come here and create file number 9. I'm a bit slow because I want everyone to understand, those who already understand and those who don't understand these things to understand. That's why I'm kind of a bit slow and trying to explain things. That if conditions, if condition, else if condition like that. Okay, so that's our second file, else if else condition. So how do you do the if else condition? I'll come and copy this and paste it here. So as we said, let me first grab this. The optimal way to check if one of this one is less than this one or not, we could just simply say else here. So else you can attach it after an if bracket. After if bracket you can attach a else. So it will execute if x is less than 9, it will execute this one, else it will execute this one. So there it will become much more automatic and much more efficient. Why? Because to run only a single if. Otherwise, if we didn't know how to use if else, then it means that we could again write another if to check if x again is greater than what? Greater than y. But that is not optimal and that's not efficient. Okay, so else if is very important to implement when you have the ability to, when you have the possibility to. So let's go ahead and run this. So it will have to execute one of this one. If this is true, to execute this one, else to execute this one, and we'll get the same thing. So let's go ahead and run. Let's go ahead and run it. So I'm going to say dot and then say 9. Can you see 2 is less than 9, which is true, but let's go ahead and put here 9. So if you put 9, you're going to see 9 is greater than what? Than 9, which is not true. But what did it do? So it checked, is 9 less than 9? No. So it executed the what? The else part. So that brings us to the third scenario. What if you have another condition? Because if 9 is equal to 9, then it means that that's another scenario when something is not, or when you need like 3 things chained together. That is according to this example that we're using. But there are so many examples when you want to switch the menu. So many examples. You want to switch the menu, you want to switch an item, and there are so many conditions that you may want to do what? To put together or to chain together. So you always need the what? The knowledge of what? Of if else. I mean else if. As you can see here, 9 is greater than 9, which is not true. Why? Because it just executed this part and found it's not equal, or it's not less than, then it executed the second one, which is not true also. So that brings us to what? To the third type of condition, which is if else if. So I'll copy this name, come here, create the 10th file, 10 if else underscore if. So there we go. Okay, so we're going to put here our void main and then put the condition. So you can just simply, let me come and copy this piece of code and we start from here. So you can put here. So here you come check. So we first check. We can first check. Let me write everything from scratch. Yeah. So there are 3 scenarios that can happen here. The first one is if x is equal to y. That's the first scenario. So I should be print, and you should say that x is equal to y. That's the first scenario. So if they are not equal, then there must be something. So that's something, you chain it here. Else if, like this, put a space here. Else if, and you put another condition here. So the condition will be else if x is less than what? Is less than y. So that's the second condition. So I can say now else is less than y. So this one will be executed, will be considered second. And then the third one is going to be else, just the last one, the third one, of course. If it's not equal, it is less than. If it is not less than and these two are not true, then of course the third one will be the truth. Okay? Then is greater. So you see? But the point here, this, if this is true, this part will be ignored. If this is true, the second one, the remaining one will also be ignored. Otherwise, if this is also less, then this one can be put into consideration. But still, you can go ahead and you're not limited again. You can still go ahead and put now if it's greater than this, which is also okay. But you know, according to this example, there are only three scenarios: either equal, or less, or bigger. Otherwise, the number does not exist. But there are so many scenarios where you can have now more than these scenarios. I mean, more than these examples, more than these possibilities. Let's go ahead and run this file. So this is how we do the if, else, and else if. So I'll go ahead and run the file by simply writing dot and then the name of the file, which is beginning with number 10, and then the tab key. Press enter. You see, 9 is equal to 9. So we are catered for all conditions. So even if I check here, come and run, 11 is greater than. So you have created a simple program that speaks like a human being. So let us make this one 29. Run. 11 is less than 29. So it speaks. It can do that logic. So let us now see why we need else if and if else. Else if. So we need else if. Look at this condition. They're just 5 lines and they're really effective. If this one is not true, it will try this. If this one is not true, still will try the third one. But if we come to the first if condition, can you see? It could try whether this one was true or not. It could still what? It could still try. Why? Because they were not chained. So if you're, according to what you're writing, which program you're writing, but if you reach in a position whereby if you reach in a condition whereby you need to chain whereby you need to chain this if condition, then you have to. But for now, if you don't do that, still it will work. Why? Because the computer will be faster to do this perform this simple logic, though it is not what? It is not efficient and it's not effective. So the better way is to do what? To chain them using the if and else if. So there's also another way called the switch. That switch you can skip it, just can be like for you to try out. So the switch will try to find a specific part where it is true and to execute a certain block or part of a condition. So those are the decision making and how we make decision in that programming language. We proceed. What's the time? Remaining 15 minutes. Good. So we can proceed to, let me see here what I have on my agenda. I have decisions, lists. Okay. Let us proceed to data types, and then after data types, let us proceed to classes and objects, and after classes and objects, then we'll come to lists and maps data types. That will be good to elaborate. So the question is like, what is a class? So a class is the way. Okay, I'm not good at Python. Someone put a comment. Okay, so what is a class? A class is a custom made data type. For example, we looked at possible data types that Python that supports, and the data type that we looked at, we have integers, we have numbers, we have strings, we have after strings there's what? We have strings, and let us cheat here. We have booleans, lists, and what, and maps. But if you look at these ones, still they're not enough for us for them to perform our different data that we want to store in our, that we want to implement in our projects. For example, you're going to create a student management system, so you'll find that you want to put the data of a certain student into a particular variable. So you find a student can have something like a name, an age, maybe a phone number. So those are the three properties of a student that you're going to store about a student. But if you look at this data type that programming language supports, we cannot find the one which can store three variables three properties in a single instance of a certain variable that is defined here. Can a string store that? Yet it can store it, but it will need again it will require you another logic to do what? To decode that information, because this one just store a group of what? Of characters. Boolean cannot store that, cannot store a student information. Likewise to lists and maps. They can store, but they will store them in what? In a hard way when you want to retrieve them. So that programming language gives us ability to do what? To define what you call classes. So in a class is like a data type that you define and give your own rules. You give your own rules, and you say, hey, I want to create a class. I want to create a variable called the product, and the product will have a name, will have price, will have details. So you yourself, you're defining your what? Your property. So according to your idea, you're defining properties of a certain data type that you want. So according to your idea, according to your creativity, you can define as many data types that you want as possible. So, and that data type that you're going to predefine, that you're going to tailor-made or to customize and define by yourself, is what we call what? We call a class. So an instance of that class, for example, we're having this string. So when you create a string, you're creating its instance. So an instance of a class is what we'll call an object. For example, you're creating a student management system, and you have a class called students, a student. So when you store there, or when you create the first instance of a student, let's say a student called Muhindo, that Muhindo is what we'll call a what? An object. In simple terms, an object is an instance of a what? Of a certain particular class. So, and a class is a custom made data type. So with that much said, let's go into practicals and we see how we can do what? How we can implement classes and data and objects in that programming language. So I'll come here and create the 11th file, right click new, and I'm going to call it 11 underscore what? Data types? Classes, Classes. Class. Are we using plural, right? We're using plural and okay, classes dot that. Okay. So there we are. So let's just go ahead and define our what? Our first class. So to define a class in that, we simply write the keyword class. So it's just write class. So we're going to define a class called product. So you're making maybe an e-commerce shop, and then after doing that, you open the curly bracket and close it. So by doing like this, you'll have defined your what? Your class. So every class will contain what we call, classes will contain what we call properties. So let us give some properties to this class. So to give a property to a class, you just simply you just simply do like the way how you're doing. You can say it will have a string called name, because the product will have a name. You can as well initialize it to nothing by default. Okay, so it will have name and will have what we call integers. So it will have a price. At the price, it will just simply say it is an integer. It will be initialized to 0, and maybe it will have the description detail. You can call it string details. So it means that when you create an object of this class, it will have all these properties. Okay, all these properties what together. So let's go ahead and create the first instance of this property. So as we said, you can write even 1,000 codes on top, but if you forget to write the main function, then that program will not be executed. Why? Because it does not have a main function. So a main function can be anywhere, but it should be your programming in order the operating system to call it, and then your program start executing from there. So let's go ahead and write our main function, which is going to be void and then main, and then open bracket and close, and then like that. So after doing that, let's go ahead and create our first instance of a what? Of a product. Of a product class. So to create an instance of a product class, we simply, just like the way we were saying int, and then you create something and then initialize it. So likewise to here, to create an instance of a product, we just simply first define the name of a what? Of a class. So the name of our class is called product. Okay. So in this name, we are going to create a product called what? Product called soap. Okay. Soap equals to new, then product, and then do like that. So I mean that we have now one product called soap. So once you do like that, soap, it means that we have 3 properties. All of them, they are attached to this soap, which is really beautiful. We can access all things chained to one particular variable. But assume that if you didn't know the knowledge of using object-oriented, this is what we call object-oriented programming. In fact, when you start talking about class and objects, is what we call the object-oriented programming. Everything that you're looking before, it was just structured programming. So we have created what? A class, and it's called soap. An object is called soap in this one. So if you didn't have the knowledge of object-oriented programming, what does it mean? You could create 3 different properties, and when you want to create maybe another product called sugar, so it means that you could create other 3 properties, hence 6 variables. You create other 3 variables, hence 6 variables. But can you see here the beauty? You just define it once, and then it will have, so these are two variables, but they're having 6 properties. So, and we can access them grouped into these names of these variables. So if you didn't have this knowledge of object-oriented programming, it will really be hard for you to create complex projects. So after doing that, let's go ahead and see how we can access the properties of a certain variable. So to access this name, we just simply say name. These things of public, private, we'll look at them later, but just first know here. That's how I access. So if I just simply say soap dot name, so you can see the suggestion. A soap has a property called name, has a property called details, and has a property called price. So let's give it a name. So the name of course is soap, and it has price, and price is maybe 1,200, and we have also the details. So I can simply put here some. So when you go into Flutter programming, once you have already practiced this one, you will just flow without even thinking. So some details about what? About, so it can be stored here. So that's how we can initialize it. So let's go ahead and display this on in our console. So to display it, we can just simply use print, and then we can put here name. So if you want to access something which is if you want to access a property of a class, just put $sign, property of an object, put $sign, put curly brackets. Otherwise, if you don't put curly brackets, it will not work. It works only when the variable is having a particular name, but this one is going to have the dot, then you have to put a curly bracket. So soap dot name, put here new line, it will automatically put there itself. So we have soap dot name, we have here price, soap dot price, and then we have another one which is going to be details. So soap dot detail, details. So save, come to our console, and then run. It's going to be .11 and then the tab key, and you can see the beauty that all of it, they are all attached to what particular, and your data will also be organized. So that is why we need classes and what, and objects. So let's finish this example by, yes, you have a question?
Very. Yeah, I just want to ask about the use of the $sign. Previously, when we were trying to bring back the variable names, we're not putting the curly brackets. So can I still use the same? Can I still do the same way here, or I need to put the curly brackets?
Thank you so much. Yeah, you cannot use the same. Thank you so much. I said that you cannot use the same if is not having what, the $sign. The $sign will work only if the variable does not have a dot. Let us say like you're having something called var x equals to 20. This one 201. This one, yes, you can just simply put $sign and x, it will work, right? $sign and x, it will work. But as long as it is an object and it is having a dot to access a property, then you must wrap it between what? Between curly brackets. Just know that, and that's how that works. So this one can work like this, or it can work like this. Are we together, my friend?
Yes, we are.
Great. So that's how we access properties of what? Of a class. So we come to methods of a class. Let's first check our time. Someone's calling me. Okay, so in 1 minute that is remaining, let us look at methods, and then maybe we can organize another class where we can go deep into method, constructors, public and private stuff, all that. But before we finish today's class, let's first look at methods, and then we can proceed. I mean, we can end our today's class. So methods, what are methods? Methods, I'm showing here that my internet is not good. Members, can you hear me clearly? Because I'm getting a
Yes.
Okay, that is great. So let us look at methods, and that will be our last topic for today. So what are methods? Methods, they are functions inside what? Inside a class. A function, you know what is a function? It's a piece of code that we can execute when we call it. I mean, is a piece of code under a certain curly bracket that we can call, and it will perform some things for us. It will perform some operations for us. So we need these functions, and a function, yeah, time is up, but just give me 5 minutes as I give you the knowledge about functions. So a function inside a method, I mean inside a class, we call them methods. I repeat, a function inside a class, we call them what? We call them methods. You'll find that when we go into complex programming, we really need methods or functions organized or attached on what? On different classes. For example, if you have a class called student, then you may need something to perform some logic on this student. Maybe you want to know if this student has already paid fees or not. So it means that you'll have to write something that will go and check in the database of school fees and check this student is really there, and then check his balance and then tell whether he has paid or not, something like that. But realize that that function is only about students. So it will not make sense for you to put that function everywhere. Maybe you put it in public functions where I can access the functions everywhere. No, but that it will be good if you could write that function inside student, such that this function will only be loaded into the computer memory only when we create the instance of what? The instance of students. That's just an example. So if the teacher logs in and he's doing his own thing, maybe he's checking the marks or he's uploading the marks, or he's doing another thing, maybe creating notes, and he's not dealing with students at that time, then it will not be loaded into the memory, because that function is only about students. So that means that when you're creating functions, there are some functions which will not be common and which will not need anywhere, and those functions that we don't need anywhere, which are related to about classes, it is very, very good practice to write those functions in the classes of those, in the classes that where they matter, other than putting them everywhere and they are being loaded in memory, and then you'll end up having a slow system that the client will always complain about. So that is just a simple example, but there are so many scenarios where you really need to write a function inside the class that matters to it. A function is to check my fees, but why do you need it to load it everywhere, so that even someone is not dealing with school fees, that function is loaded into the computer memory? So to create good applications, you have to really consider when you're creating a class and functions that matter to it. So I'm going to demonstrate one more example, just one example about functions, and functions that are inside classes, we call them methods. After demonstrating it, and then we'll call it a day. For example, we have our product here, but you realize that a product, you're going to be giving discounts. So a discount will be calculated, because a discount is not going to be static. For example, you can say that I'm going to give 20% to every discount, to every product. So there it means that you have to do the logic, and this discount is going to be what? It's going to be dynamic. So to do that logic, it means that you need to write a function, and since that function matters only on products, it means that function should be inside a product class, and a function that is inside a product class, we call it a what? A method. So here we're going to create a method that is going to help us to calculate discount of any particular product that we create. So how shall we do that? We can do that by simply writing, how do you create functions anyway? By simply writing a function. No, we don't do it like that. I simply writing what you return. So a function of a discount to return maybe an integer. It will return an integer, and then we give the name of the function. You begin with what this. Okay, let me come again. To write a method or a function in that programming language, you begin with what this function is promising. So this function, of course, is going to perform the logic, but it's going to promise you that, hey, after me doing all whatever I want, I'll give you what? The result. So you begin, what is this function going to promise? So a function of discount, it is going to promise what? An integer. So it is going to promise us, hey, if you ask me to do this, I'll give you the answer, but this answer will be of a certain what? Data type. So that's what we call integer. So what to return. So we say that this function return an integer. If you return nothing, you just write nothing, and nothing is void. You write in a void. If you return some string, you just write string, and then if you're expecting string. So we're expecting this function of this function of discount will return to us an integer. So we have to begin with int, and then we give the name of the function. The name of this function is going to call discount. Discount. And then we open brackets like this, and then curly brackets like this. But you still see the error here. Why the error? It's because we promised we will return integer and we have not returned it, so it is showing us the error. So we have unfinished business. So let's go ahead and do the discount logic. We can do it like this, can say int and then maybe say disk equals to 0 by default, and then you can say, now let us do the discount logic. You can simply say discount equals to, then how do you calculate discount? The discount is 100%, I mean a discount value maybe 20%, divide by 100 times what? Times the price. So the price, I want to access the price of this particular object or the instance that will have created this object. To access it, just simply say this, and then you do dot what? Dot price. So after, we have to return what we promised, which is the discount. So you say return the discount. I can just simply put price to access it. Why am I getting this error? Yeah, it is going to return double here. You know, a division will return double, so that's why. But you can typecast it. Okay, can just simply say, okay, here will return what? Will return double. You know, a division always return double, right? So you can do like this. So they will have no problems. So a division will turn a double, but you can still typecast it to an integer. So I hope you are together still there. So it's going to get 20 divided by 100 times price of this particular object. So this is a piece of logic. I'm just doing this as a simple example. I'm doing this one as a simple example because when you create a bigger thing, when you create bigger projects, you'll find that a function is going to have 20 lines, 30 lines, 100 lines. But it all starts from simple logic. So that once you understand how method works, there was one. Okay. If you understand how the method works, if you understand how method works, then it means that you can use that logic to do any other thing. So I hope we are together here. So let us make use of this method. So to access the method, you just simply come to so after price, let us put discount. Discount. So the discount, I just come and call shop, and then call the method like this. You see, I just simply put the name of the variable and then I call the method. So it means that this method will only operate on what? On products and a product instance. So if I come and refresh, so if I run this, clean, run, can you see? Name soap, price 1200, discount 240. So why, I hope now you can now connect the dots why we need discounts. Let us finalize this by just doing one more example here. So I'm going to initialize here the price. I'm going to put here what? Sugar. So I'll give it the name here, sugar, and maybe sugar is 2000. Let me say sugar is 8000. Okay, and then some details about sugar. Let us now run this. So I'm going to print here print some line that is going to separate the two, and then put here a new line like this, and then here, okay, like that. So let us go and copy this and display. I just want you to get the concept, that's why I'm sorry for promising wrong time. So soap, sugar, so they're going to be the same. So also, doctor, you're not clear, doctor. Doctor, your network is really poor. We can't get you.
Okay.
Maybe you'll put the message in the chat, sir. So members, you can now see we're having sugar object and price object. So I want to just give a reason why we need the things like methods. So let me run it again. Clear the screen. Run. Can you see? Let me run and display. Can you see? we are having here soap, it's having its price, it's having its discount. We are having sugar, it's having its price, it's having its discount. So the point here, the price of sugar, which is 8,000, is not the same price of what? Of soap, which is 1,200. So how did it come with this discount? By doing the simple logic. Can you see the logic that we did this one? So anything that may need you to require to do some logic, you will need to write for it a method, and that method, it will be good if it is inside a class, so that it should not be loaded into the memory of a computer even when you're not going to do what? To implement it. Very last example, very last, I'm going to create now the one which will get for us net price. So net price, we will get it from let us call it integer. So it's also going to be a method. Okay, it's going to be a method because net price will be dynamic also. Double, and I'm going to call it net, and then I'm going to so it will return an integer. I'm going to call it net price. So how shall we calculate the net price? And another point that I'm going to show you here is that even a method can call another method within a class. So how can we do that? To get the net price, you just simply say, okay, another way how you can do things. For example, here we first initialized and then calculated and then returned. But I'm going to show you another way. Instead, you don't want to initialize another variable. You can just simply say return without even initializing, and that's the best way. You'll have saved the memory of creating something separate. So I can just simply say return price of this particular product minus discount. I think that's how we get the what? The minus discount, and I call the discount function. So what will happen? What does it say? It should be double, no problem, because double has the other integer, this one has some integer. So I hope you can see that. So what's going to happen when you call this method? It will just simply get the price of this particular object and call this discount and perform the logic and return it immediately. So that another poor way of doing that is to first initialize another double, like the way we did here, right? I did here because I assumed that you don't know, but when you are a pro, like when you are pro, then this is the better way than this one. Why? Here we did not create a new variable, but here you had to create a new variable. Here we just calculated, and the result we returned it. So let's go ahead and display this. So I'll come here and put net price and put here net price. Duplicate this. So also these shortcuts of duplicating, they're really important when you're becoming a developer. So to duplicate in this, you just press Control and arrow down, Control Shift and arrow down. So I save. Let us run it. So we'll be able to get also the net price. Run it. Beautiful. Hope you can see that. Can you see? We're having as name soap, price, that it calculates for us the discount, it calculates for us the what? The net price, and some details about soap. Name, price. So what we just provide is the price, but about the worry of discount, the worry of net price, the program does it itself, and it does it in best efficient way, because that method will only be loaded when you create that instance of that particular product. So I thought that we will finish that, but I was trying to explain so that you can understand properly. So maybe we will organize another more class, and we'll decide whether we should first finish these DAT discussions and maybe refreshing ourselves about programming with these good practices, or we just go straight to Flutter and start doing things without making our roots okay. So that's it for today. I'll share the notes, I will share the video with the doctor, and we will always meet again. So thank you for being part of this. Yeah. Back to you, doctor.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Yes, you're excused. Okay, so If there's no question, we'll hear from Doctor and then maybe we can call it a day.
I would like to ask you something in the code.
Yes, please. I share my screen again. Okay, here is the code.
Yeah. How you were printing the methods in the void.
Okay, very good. I was just calling them. Can you see? So let me explain that. You see, this is soap. It's going to give the discount. But this discount, it promised us. These methods, it's good practice not to print within methods. Never print within a method unless the use of a method is to print. So this discount, what did it do? It promised to us that it will return a what? It will return a double. So it did the logic and after it returned the double. So when we call it here, I'm not printing it but I'm calling it. So when we call it here, what it does the logic and returns the double. And that double is substituted here and then it will be able to be printed. So I did not print the method, but what happened is the method did the logic and returned the value. So whatever value it returned, it was substituted here and printed. Have you understood?
Yes, but mine is bringing an error. I don't know why.
Then you watch this video again and then you'll be able to understand. Okay, maybe you'll share your screen or you'll watch the video again and then you'll be able to understand how I've done it.
Maybe let me try to debug it here because I still I have the same thing.
Okay, I'll share the code with you after this class and then you'll look at it step by step.
Okay.
Do you still have Doctor? Is Dr. Drake still around?